Today I'm excited to share Tiffany McManus' story with you. She is going to talk about her brother who developed cerebral palsy right after he was born. She's going to tell her story about him and their life together. So she has had a lot go on in her life, but today we're really going to dig into what life was like living with a brother who had CP and how the design of the environment really makes a difference in interacting together as a family and in the community.
Okay. Well, his name is Ryan Roth, and he was born with what's called hydrocephalus, which is water pooling in the brain, spinal fluid that doesn't drain the way it's supposed to.
Sure.
So he had a surgery when he was a baby to, drain that fluid into, basically they put a shunt from the brain to the stomach so that it just kind of
Would drain constantly.
Yes. So they did that, but the first one closed off, and then they did it again. The second one, they, I think, put it a little bit too far in and just made a couple small mistakes, but those turned into big mistakes because then he got cerebral palsy.
So he wasn't technically born with CP,
correct,
but because of that, he ended up having CP. Okay.
So I think he was a little bit more aware of things than someone who's born with it. I think that kind of made him frustrated a lot because you could tell that he knew people weren't understanding him. Well, because he couldn't talk at all, basically, and he couldn't walk. But he grew like a normal child, so he got fairly large. He turned into an adult eventually.
Right.
Which, a lot of times if you have cerebral palsy, you kind of grow slower and you don't get quite as tall generally.
The brain damage is caused by brain injury or abnormal development of the brain that occurs while a child's brain is still developing, before birth, during birth, or immediately after birth. Cerebral palsy affects body movement, muscle control, muscle coordination, muscle tone, reflex, posture, and balance. Source, cerebralpalsy.org.
So yeah, he needed a wheelchair, so we always had to be in mind of places that were wheelchair accessible.
Sure.
And you don't really think about those things until you have to deal with it, so.
Yeah. So how, was he a younger brother or an older brother?
He was a year younger.
A year younger.
Yeah.
So how old was he when he had, those surgeries? I guess he was a baby when he had the surgery?
Like a couple months old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 3 months and 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, pretty small.
So that's a lot going on all at once after a baby is born and dealing with all of those medical things.
And I mean, I was only like 1.5, so I wouldn't have really known anything about that. But I'm sure it was tough for Mom because also Dad had passed away, the year before, so she was kind of on her own.
Right.
So,
yeah, a lot going on. Wow.
But yeah, so we always had to think about just having flat surfaces so we could move the wheelchair. I mean, when he was a super little baby, I don't think he had a wheelchair because we could just carry him. I think we got his first one when he was maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
I want to say.
When he was getting heavy enough not to carry anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was probably around that time.
Cool. So in terms of what other people didn't know about his injury and how it impacted his life, like what was kind of the number one thing regarding his abilities that you wished people understood?
Well, for him, I think just his understanding, which would have probably been different, like I said, than other people with the same disability. But he understood, when you talked to him, he had other brain functions that worked perfectly. So, if you were to make fun of him or, anything like that or do something around him he knew he couldn't do, he would get sad,
Sure.
And you could tell. So he can express those things besides crying, but yeah. So a lot of times if we were walking around and people would stare or whatever, and I think my grandma got a little more upset than me, but I would just be like, why are you looking like, you don't really think about it when you live around them every day that they look different or whatever, but
you're kind of used to it.
Yeah. So those kind of things, that they're aware that you're making fun or staring, and it's not nice, obviously. So
right. So like outside, what people perceive on the outside isn't necessarily
exactly
what's going on.
Yeah, because I mean, you wouldn't just walk up to someone else and be like, "Oh, you look weird," you know, like
right.
So
yeah. So you talked about him having to like use a chair. Were there any changes that your mom had to make to your home, like for him to use it easier? Like was your home like 1 level, 2 level? Like what did you have to do?
When we moved to Broadway when I was like 6 and he was 5, and I do remember we had to add a ramp in our garage to get in because we had stairs. So there's 3 stairs to get in the front door, which we didn't bother about that, but in the garage there was also 3 really tall concrete stairs, and so clearly having to pull up and down stairs would be really annoying to leave the house
every time.
So we made a ramp, a wooden ramp with a railing and stuff into the house.
Cool.
Which actually kind of served as a storage underneath too, so it kind of turned out nice.
Yeah.
But we could still fit our car in there and everything, so it turned out
nice.
And then we had a basement, but he just didn't go down there really, so.
Sure. So was he able to move his wheelchair on his own, or?
No, his arms didn't really work quite like that. I mean,
Sure.
he could use them, but, and he did like to like feel his wheels. I think they felt kind of fun to him, but he didn't know how to push it, so we pushed him.
Yeah, so family was in and out around the house, that type of thing. That makes sense.
Yep.
So, anything like in the bathroom to make things easier?
Not really. I know at one point we did add the handles around the toilet, which he didn't really use, but my grandma would try to show him and hope that he would, but
sure,
he didn't really. But yeah, so we had that. But otherwise, my grandpa would just carry him. Like into the tub, into wherever. So that's kind of
pick him up and move him. So like no mechanical lifts or anything like that.
Let me see. At one point we did get a Hoyer lift, which is it has 2 legs, and then it comes up in the back and a little sling hangs.
Sure.
So you put them on the little sling and then it lifts them up for you. We got one of those. I think we were working with the Shiner Hospital at one point, so I think they might have helped us get that. And that was just to help my grandparents so they wouldn't have to, carry him. Or when my grandpa was working, if grandma was home.
Right.
It was hard for either of us to lift him when he got big, so.
Sure. I mean, if he's at that point had grown into an adult, and if,
I'm sure he was over 100 pounds, so.
Yeah, that's a lot for anyone, but especially older individuals.
And a teenager.
Yes.
So.
Exactly, yes.
So, so we had that. What else? I think we also got a little lift to help him stand at one point. Just different things to try to help him walk, which didn't necessarily help around the house, but just stuff like that. But those things are expensive, so I'm sure I don't know exactly what help we got, but I'm sure they got help somewhere.
No, that makes sense. I know that the medical equipment, it's just, I mean, it's great if you can have it, but then like just the amount that it costs.
And then you have to think about wheelchairs. You eventually outgrow them, so you need to upgrade to a bigger one, or if they break, then you need that, or wheel breaks or anything. So it is a lot of extra expense you don't necessarily think about.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yes, especially if they grow. Yeah, most people, if they're injured when they're older, I mean, they get their standard chair and it breaks, but kids grow quickly. So.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think we probably went through maybe 3 chairs. I think the last one we got kind of was almost like a booster seat where it would grow with him a little bit. But yeah, I remember having different ones.
So was there anything like about your house that you think, like if it was designed differently, like would have been like just so much easier on your family?
Let's see. I know not everybody could have this, but it would be kind of nice if there was like some sort of lift, so that he could have went down in the basement sometimes to be with it. Like if, like my mom babysat, so a lot of times us kids would go downstairs to play, So then, he would be kind of by himself watching TV or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm sure he would have liked to come downstairs
Yeah.
and hang out with us.
Yeah.
He loved watching other kids run around and interact and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
so like either some sort of lift, or maybe we could have gotten one of those little seats that
Sure.
moves up and down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Just things that make it a little more accessible. Having maybe a shower chair would have been nice. Didn't think about that, but
Yeah.
things that would have made. I mean, my grandpa lifted him fine, but
I mean,
if you think about like someone that's even bigger than he was, you would need to have more things to.
so he sat on the bottom of the tub then, like he
Usually.
would go, and yeah, so
Usually.
lifting from that far down, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm sure.
I think we had moved to Florida for a couple years. So I think we did get like a shower chair at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
Stuff like that would have been easier.
yeah.
So what about getting like around the community, like for appointments, like going out for family stuff, like what
Right.
was that like transportation wise? And
Well, in his early years, we just, lifted him in and out of the car. But, let's see, I think somewhere around age 11 or 12, we bought a minivan and we took out the middle seats and then installed a lift thing.
nice.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
It wasn't really one of the ones that automatically came out. It was just kind of a metal ramp that my
Okay.
grandpa could pull out and,
Oh,
and
nice.
put back
Okay.
in.
Mhm.
That was
like kind of like
I'm sure that was cheaper.
ATV like lifters.
Yeah,
like
kind of.
some-
Yeah. So we
sure.
would just put it down and then scoot him up. But then you have to remember, you have to watch what parking spaces you get into because that takes extra room. So we could never park in a normal spot. We always had to have the wheelchair spots just for the crossed lines because we had to use that.
Yes, yes.
To get the ramp out, get him out, all that. So,
Mhm.
so there was more consideration.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of discrepancy about if people can park. I mean, you shouldn't be able to park in those lines, but there are a lot of people who don't quite understand the reasoning why
Right.
that extra space is needed.
And lots
So-
of people have those ramps.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
sometimes they're in the back, but we had the side.
The
so.
side one.
Mhm.
Well, and a lot of, we've even seen people that put stickers like on the side of their van to say
That's smart.
extra space is needed. If people see it or not, you're not sure.
Yeah, who knows?
Right. But yeah,
But-
that's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
How did his disability impact what things he did for fun, like leisure, recreation? Were there opportunities for him to participate like just as him, or was he always kind of there as like to participate with other people?
He definitely always needed somebody with him, whether it be one of us or just someone that would be willing to push him if needed, or, like he couldn't get up and walk, so he wouldn't be able to just go play or anything, but he did enjoy watching other kids play. And, sometimes if it was someone we knew or younger kids, they might throw the ball to him or something, which he couldn't really catch it, but you could kind of help him or whatever.
Sure.
So he definitely needed a lot of help with recreational activities, but he at least liked watching them.
Yeah.
So, and otherwise he just kind of watched movies and stuff at home, but we tried to get him outside as much as possible.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, he had to do things that didn't really require holding on, like a swing, or when he was younger, sometimes he would sit on one of our laps and we'd swing or something, just to kind of get him involved. But yeah, there always had to be some sort of holding him in or anything if it
Straps
was
or something like that.
So yeah, there was limited things that he could actually do. Otherwise, he'd have to just watch. But
Right.
But
Yeah. And I feel like at that time there probably weren't like a lot of like playgrounds that had
No.
anything like that. I mean, I know we have one in town now that
Yeah.
has some really
that
cool
would have been
stuff.
so fun. Yeah, he would have loved that. But.
Yeah, I'm sure. But
But-
yeah, back in the days of metal slides and wooden playground structures,
Yeah,
there probably
they
wasn't
didn't
a lot.
really think that for
No.
that.
What is one thing in the community in general that you would want to change to make it easier for him to participate in things?
I would probably just say have more activities that are geared more towards people in wheelchairs or with disabilities. I know we don't really have I know we have the playground, which is great, but we don't really have any like Special Olympic type things,
right?
Where people in a wheelchair or with disabilities could come and do a sport together, or just even if it was just an after school type program where people were trained to help people with disabilities, coaches and stuff that could maybe do like fun activities where they're outside. Right. He spent a lot of time inside just because we couldn't take him out all the time, and there really wasn't any like activities like that where someone else could help us. Happy to have him outside and doing things. So that would be nice.
Just to have them that opportunity to participate in something.
Where they would feel like they were doing something special
in some way.
And they could win prizes or whatever. That would make them feel special.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right too about like the whole training aspect. Like a lot of people that do put those activities on, they might not have that knowledge or even know where to start with.
Probably not. Not unless you have someone like that in your family and you're around it all the time. You couldn't just pick someone and say, hey, you want to be a coach for this? Like, they'd have to have at least a little, not like a huge class on it, but just a few tidbits to help them.
And make them think a different way, because they might not think it's possible for someone to participate. So,
and a lot of times, especially if you have the will and the drive, you can do a lot more than people think you can.
Sure, exactly. So, what advice do you have for someone who is interacting would have been interacting with your brother for the first time, and maybe curious about him or not like quite sure how to interact with him?
I would say, they can see you, they can hear you. They're not blind and deaf.
Right.
So just be careful of your non-verbal expressions. Don't treat them like a baby and talk babyish. At least I know sometimes they might not be able to perceive you as much, but my brother could definitely understand. And so as he was growing up, my grandma, I remember she's like, don't talk babyish to him, he's an adult,
right?
Because sometimes that's just your reaction. But
sure.
So just remember, they hear you, they know, they can understand more than you think. Just because they can't talk back doesn't mean they didn't know every word you said. So be mindful of how you are reacting with your facial expressions and all that. Don't be like, ooh,
right?
Because that could hurt their feelings just as much as if you did that to someone you walked up to on the street. So
exactly.
Tiffany also shared a little bit of advice on what businesses can do to accommodate people like her brother.
Just remember, if you're trying to pack a whole bunch into a small space, that we need extra space to get around. I would say most people's attitudes are usually fine if they're working at a business, but just remember that we might need a little bit extra time to get around and do things, a little extra space.
Did you ever have any trouble with like public bathrooms or anything like that?
Well, my brother used diapers because he couldn't stand.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
However, that does bring up the baby. We had to put him on the baby things to change him if, we had to when we were out.
Yeah.
And, putting a 100-pound kid on one of those baby things is kind of scary sometimes.
Yeah.
So that is true. It would be nice. It would be really nice if there was like a table or something in every bathroom for someone who's larger and needs. But I know that might be kind of difficult to add in. But yeah,
I've seen things online about that as well, and like moms taking pictures of them like changing their grown child on the floor because they're like, they put down like a blanket, they carry a blanket with them, and because they're like, otherwise they'd have to go back home or try to do it in the van or something like that. But they were kind of advocating for the same thing, like, there are a lot of people who are older who can't fit in those baby things anymore because they probably weren't designed in that way. But yeah.
Or even just a dedicated space, maybe not adding in a whole other piece of equipment, but just like a dedicated larger space that's kept clean and is only for that kind of thing.
That kind of need.
Or even nursing mothers or something, like those kind of things where you kind of need that extra space, but not everyone should just go in there because then it would be dirty. But
right. Well, and I'm sure, I mean, like individuals that would need that space for somebody with a disability to change them, you know, they would need a lot of space to kind of lay things and put things. And same thing with nursing mothers who have a big bag of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it may work for the same type of thing. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea. How did his disability impact like family relationships, relationships with others?
Mostly everybody that we knew, you know, about him. So I guess if we were to meet someone new, it would take a little bit of time to get used to the fact that he couldn't just go anywhere at any time. He usually did fine when we go out, so we didn't usually have to follow a schedule, like if you have a baby or something.
Sure.
So there wasn't a whole lot of that kind of stuff that we would necessarily be different from any other family, but we mainly just had to remember that if they didn't have a TV or or he was gonna be hungry, you know, he'd sort of make a scene, I guess you could say, quote unquote, because that's all he could do.
Right.
So I guess in some aspects it's almost like having a baby, but not quite as strict. So
yeah,
you just had to kind of keep that in mind if we were
but
going out with someone.
typically the people that you knew like accepted him and were
I can't remember anyone we knew not loving on him and stuff. So
sure. Sure, that makes sense. He's a part of your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he was like that since he was a baby, basically. So
right, that's all they knew.
Yeah,
sure. So what do you wish that more people knew about your brother? Just his personality, things that they might not see just by looking at him.
Well, if you came and talked to him, you would realize a lot more, because anytime someone interacted with him, he would, you know, look at you and smile, or obviously not respond with words, but you could tell he was paying attention and he appreciated you coming. And he would even sometimes, like, you know, hold his arms out for a hug or something. Like, he loved interaction and touch just like anybody else. So
sure,
a lot of people wouldn't know that if you just saw him strolling by, you know, or whatever. But it's always nice to take time to talk to people with disabilities, because a lot of times they're, you know, the nicest people you could meet, and you wouldn't know that unless you went and talked to them. So
and gave them had the opportunity to get to know them. No, that's good. Anything else you want to share about your experience having a sibling with disability? Anything like that comes to mind?
It was always strange when someone was like, "Oh, how is that?" You know, being a sibling to someone like that, or something like, "What are you talking about?" Something like, "What?" Like, it was always just so normal to me that you know, you don't think about it being that you're different. So it'd be nice if people knew that, so they wouldn't expect that you feel different.
Sure.
I'm thankful that Tiffany was able to share a little bit of what it's like to have a sibling with a disability. She even said that it wasn't all that abnormal to her because that's all she knew. We want to really get across that people living with a disability aren't the only ones affected. It's their friends and family members as well. Thanks for listening to Tiffany's story, and look forward to seeing you next time.